Hi, I'm Rabbi Mordechai Liebling, and I am here to tell you that this is a case where religion and science both agree.
Yes.
Religion tells us that we have a moral obligation to protect the earth.
Yes.
Science tells us that we're destroying the earth by fracking. So you have an obligation of your intellect to follow science and a moral obligation to protect the earth. Wow. You need to do both. So I'd like to ask you at this moment if you would just think for a moment of somebody that you really deeply love. Is there a child, a grandchild, a parent, somebody that you really deeply love? And allow that feeling of love to go into your heart right now. What is it like to really love somebody? And picture that person. And now picture that person drinking polluted water for years. And what's going to happen to that person that you love, or that grandchild or great-grandchild or niece or nephew who hasn't been born yet? And what are you condemning them to? Put the dots together. We started today with a presentation about what the extraction industry did in Pennsylvania 100 years ago, 50 years ago, and we're picking up the pieces now. Then we heard a report about flooding. And why do we have extreme weather? Because of climate change. And why do we have climate change? Because of fossil fuels. And what do we know about methane gas, which is released in great quantity from the fracking process? That methane gas is 20 times as bad for the climate as CO2 is. So you are creating even more of a problem by allowing fracking. Then the very first person who testified this morning talked about nuclear power, right? And then we heard somebody talk about earthquakes. It is now fairly clear that fracking causes low-level earthquakes. So here we have more nuclear power and more earthquakes. And what just happened in Japan? You know? What about these football field holding tanks? What's going to happen to them when an earthquake hits? Do you know? What's going to happen to those holding tanks when there's extreme flooding? Do you know?
Yeah, they go in the
You really need to allow the time for these impact studies to happen. Allow the time for science to tell you what the impact of fracking is. There is no rush. We do not need this gas tomorrow. There is no rush in allowing these permits. You can say no to them. You have to decide, I would like to say one more thing. You have to decide if you're going to be good Germans or you're going to stand up for what is right.
Wow.